My connection just seems to be getting worse and worse as we keep doing this. It is actually annoying me a butt ton. How's it for anyone viewing? How's it looking on your end? I don't think we have anyone viewing right now. Has anyone said anything on Facebook? Getting a lot of buffering that was last minute. Yeah, wonderful. Sorry, let me just turn that light off. Let me just let him know that, yeah, getting dropped frames this end too. Dropping frames already again. Ah, dear. I don't know where that message got sent, but it got sent to someone. Right, well, let's fight through the buffering nonsense. Oh, put my light on backwards. Let's see if we can at least get a start. Hopefully things are a bit more stable. I've got viewers. I've not dropped any extra frames since. Let us hope the technology plays ball. I don't know why this keeps happening. I know I'm technically being naughty about being on a Wi-Fi connection rather than a wired connection, but the modem's downstairs. So yeah, this guy, Nilak Dynasty, I'm going to show the image again just because I think people are now actually here. Bit more interesting than silvers and greens. What bitrate am I streaming at? It's currently at about 2000 kbps. It's not like something. The problem isn't the bitrate; it's the fact that the bitrate is changing, and I'm not selecting a bitrate. It's just using whatever. But yeah, doing this color scheme, bit more interesting than the plain silvers and greens usually done with Necrons. Might do a little bit of black here and there. I know there's a lot on this guy's weapon. Well, the only real main weapon I can do this on is this gun here. But let's get a start. So, main body of this guy is going to be silver. I know I just said it's going to be a lot more interesting than just doing silver, but let's start with the silver. So we're going to be starting with some lead belcher. That's going to be for the main body of this guy. I'm basically going to be doing two types of silver. There's going to be the actual main carapace, and then there's the joints and the inner bits I'm going to be doing in a darker silver. And, as a slight update, I did look into it. Should be okay using metallics on a wet palette. It makes sense saying it out loud, but the mica particles that are used to give this a metallic sheen are larger than the normal like paint pigments. So if mica would get through, normal paint colored pigments would get through, and that hasn't happened. So if things go awry, this thing's going through the washing machine. Done it before and it's worked out fine. And let us pick the right brush for the job. I want a decent size, but I also don't want humongous, because I don't want to just give myself more work later. So just going to go with a standard brush that I'm sure there's a couple brushes in there that I got from an Airfix kit that I've just been using to hell and back. I'm going to get a fair bit of this. So this is mostly, like I said, going to be going onto his limbs. Not anything on like any big plates of armor or what have you, but it's going to do a bulk of the work because he's got a lot in terms of limb. He's got 3 legs, 3 arms, and all sorts of things going on. But I am just going to be plopping that straight on. And immediately I can tell that does make using these colours a bit easier. I don't mind right now if I do get this on the bits I'm going to be doing the darker silver. It is easier to make something bright darker than it is to make something that's dark brighter. So, whatever. So yeah, Necrons. I've always had a little bit of nostalgia for these guys. Because they were technically my first army when I started out about a decade or so ago. I'm going to need more silver already. So I do have a lot of nostalgia for these guys. Way back, I started in the middle of 5th edition. And way back then, the Necrons were literally just a bunch of like autonomous drone machines being controlled by like the Catan, which that's completely flipped on its head now in terms of the actual background. And I remember seeing a lot of the reactions. I believe would it have been? I started in 2010, so it would have been 2011, 2012-ish times, I believe, when the Necrons actually got that huge update to their background, where now they actually do have, well, some members of the Empire do actually still have some of their old personalities from before everyone put their souls in robots. Except now it's read as bull. There's a fair bit of similarity, yeah. Instead of like being turned into cyborgs, it's we stuck our soul in robots. And basically, they sort of justified the whole sort of split between the old version where like some of them just didn't have any personalities. They were mindless drones still even after the retcon. And how some of the newer versions had their old personalities from before is it sort of like different where you were basically on the hierarchy. So you have like royalty, guard, military, and workers. The higher up that hierarchy you were, the better quality of new mechanical body you got. So the overlords and lords got bodies that were completely like not just physically strong, but mentally were able to had the full capacity to actually process and express their own personalities. Whilst all the way down on the lower rung with the warriors, with the workers, which were like artisans and farmers, menial workers and things like that, who are now the Necron warriors, the basic troop. Their bodies were only basically have the capacity to act out really basic commands. Their personalities and souls are in there, but their bodies just cannot process them. So I suppose it's a bit of a have no mouth and must scream situation where you're just sort of fighting against your own body to just even be. And it's a bit dark when I say it out loud. Granted, it was always going to be a bit dark. It's 40k, but yeah, there's a few things you can take from that. Certain things you could read into. Anyone who's familiar with the cyberpunk sort of setting, not the game that crashed and burned last year, but the actual like genre, probably can fill in some gaps there as to what the Necron backstory might be trying to imply about how technology is used, especially nowadays. And that is starting to be really felt, especially after this past year. Let's put it that way. Yeah, I don't know. It was weird for me because I've always been one that's like, oh, this has changed. Cool. Anything interesting about it? While some people are like, oh, it changed. No, put it back. This is bad. I don't like change, which I always found weird. Because, like, I don't know. I just kind of liked there's like, oh, there's actually some nuance now. Like, granted, I was fine with them being just purely mechanical drones with some really Hackney Terminator references, with them being metal alien skeletons from the future. But there was a Cyberpunk game last year. Yeah, who would have thought? Crazy, right? Yeah, this is why I've not really bought into a AAA game for a while. I suppose Dark Souls does count as AAA, but that even then, it certainly isn't what a lot of other games have been. Let's just get the underside of this thumb claw. I don't know how well some of this is showing up whilst I'm rattling on. Yeah. So you know what, that dollop got me. These finger claws and his legs. So not too bad. I'm going to need another dollop. Also, what are we thinking of the new lighting setup? I know it's not completely balanced, but what this basically is now is a ring light that I've snapped onto my phone that sort of goes around my camera, as opposed to the two little light stands that I was using beforehand. Should be helpful with taking photos as well. Also, let's check the... Yeah, nothing's going through the sponge so far, so I think we should be safe. Hey, if I can do metallics on this thing, that makes things a hell of a lot easier for me. Just gonna take another sip. Things do seem to have stabilized a bit now. We've not actually dropped any extra frames since this new iteration of the stream started. And it's been about 10 minutes, so I think we're at some form of stability. Let me just get this guy in focus. Yeah. Yeah, at least on camera you can tell the difference between the black and the white and the silver. That silver is going to get dulled down quite a bit by what I'm planning on doing. So let us just get the arms now. Like I say, going to leave a lot of the mechanical gubbins a darker metallic just to set them apart. Just so it looks like, even if it's going to just still be silver, it's going to be a different silver. Which would hopefully make things still remain a little different. There we go, just get the back of our forearms here, because I imagine most of this outer shell of this gauntlet are going to do teal. So what's the lore behind this dude? So, Skorpekh Lords. I'm still reading up, because with the new edition there's a lot that's been added to both Necrons and Marines, and I've only really just caught up on the Marines. But Skorpechs are now a new kind of something called a destroyer. Ryan might remember my old destroyers from back when I played Necrons. For John's sake, destroyers were Necrons that had, like, so this is a really old Necron warrior, literally one of the first models I painted. As you can see, teeny tiny, also looks like crap. But destroyers were Necrons that had basically gone full killbot, shall we say, and had decided, right, okay, me walking around with a gun isn't enough. I need to take my legs, chop them off, and replace them with something else. So the typical old destroyers replaced their lower legs with like this anti-grav platform, so they could float around. Basically, in rules, this also meant that they could go over other units and terrain. They didn't care, they just went over it, making them really mobile. They were faster, they were a bit tougher because they had more mass. And they replaced, instead of holding a gun with a burp, like how this guy's done here, they replaced arms with weapons. So back in the old days you had normal destroyers, which replaced an arm with a big cannon, heavy destroyers, which would replace their arm with an even bigger cannon, as the name might imply. And then we had, and I absolutely loved this unit back in the day, Destroyer Lords. Basically Necron royalty that had also just gone full killbot, done the same, remove lower body, replace it with grav platform, except instead of going around with a big gun, they went around with a big old fucking scythe. And they were absolutely, I absolutely loved using them. A little bit like Cybermen, yes, except these guys started out as ancient aliens. Like, these guys were once biological. Yeah, upgrading shit, and they still do that. So we've got these kinds of destroyers, which are called Skorpechs, where they've replaced, instead of a grav platform, they've just given themselves more legs. Similar in terms of, like, it increases their mobility, but I believe it makes them overall faster, but they still have to go around shit because they don't fly. And then there's another kind of destroyer that they've shown off, where instead of a lower body, their spine just keeps going like a really long whip tail. They're really badass looking, very much an homage to the some older Necron models that were also like that, except they weren't destroyers, they were something else entirely. And anyone who knows me personally knows I'm a sucker for my robots, so that's why Necrons were my first army. I just saw, oh, really cool robot dudes. Yes, please. And there was also skeletons, so they sort of had that sort of like over the top, edgy, grim feeling to them, which I was all for again at that age. And just honestly, the way Necrons were advertised to me by the current guy at the store, I don't know where he is now. We've gone through at least 3 other managers at that store now. Is that Necrons are one of the easiest armies to paint because back then they were just silver and green, mostly silver, green on their weapons, maybe a bit of black here and there. And I thought, yeah, okay, easy to paint. I've not painted really anything before, except I decided to be me and do them red. Like I say, you can see the difference in quality in terms of how I painted then and how I painted now. But that is why I keep this guy around. What about those centipede ones? Yes. So, they have done. Basically, those are called canoptex. They are Necrons in the sense that they transferred their souls into a body. They are literally just robots. They're just completely mechanical, programmed structures. There's a couple kinds. You've mentioned a centipede, which I believe is a tomb stalker, which is a Forge World unit. Forge World being a second party to Games Workshop to make stuff outside of the normal route. Basically, they're just like a walking expansion kit of a company. They also made tomb spiders, which were like basically handymen, automated handymen for Necrons. Because when everyone's a robot, you need someone to fix the robots when things go kaput. And then they had raves. So I mentioned raves when I mentioned the old destroyers. That there were those new destroyers where, like, instead of like their spine just keeps going, and that's what raves used to look like before they got updated. And they were really goofy. Their arms just had massive like claws like this guy does, and their shoulder pads went really wide to look like wings. They were a really good unit. They still actually are, because they can go intangible for some reason. It's like, oh, we need to navigate the tombs because we're the emergency response team in case anyone invades the tomb. So it's, we need to get there soon as. So we just are made in a way where we can just go intangible and go through shit, including the walls of our own tombs that we're protecting. And they would just eviscerate anything they came in contact with. They're still good now. And when they did update the Necron range, when they updated the lore, Raves got replaced from long skeletons to, yeah, kind of like flying centipede-looking things. And now we've got both. So, best of both worlds. And then there's also scarabs, because who doesn't love scarabs? Just little bugs everywhere. This guy actually has some teeny weeny little scarabs on his base, just here on this little bit of ruin. There's little bugs. Because, you can't really go with the whole death and decay aspect about just sticking little bugs and things everywhere, and I love them. It does make me miss Necrons talking about them. But I'm already really tempted by the new orcs when they come out, when I've already been tempted by orcs. So, we'll see how things go in terms of my purchasing habits later on in the year, because I believe my Marines are pretty much at capacity for what I wanted them to be. Oh, that's still lead belcher. Why do I have, like, 3 pots of lead belcher? Granted, it's a good paint to have. Right, so I'm just going to drop it and hit that. So for our inner workings, I am going to be going with Iron Warrior, which you might be able to tell is a much darker steel, just to make it look a bit more active, shall we say. But yeah, I don't know. I still like where Necrons have gone. I've never been one that's been too bothered by like, oh, things changed me though. Like, I'm like, oh, things, like I said, oh, things changed. Okay, well, is it cooler now? If so, then fine, whatever. Yeah, I can already see the difference there. So, who knows? In a world where I have infinite money, I would probably have a Necron army too. Tempted by Orcs could be the title of your autobiography. It has the Mummy vibes without being the Mummy film. Yeah, you know what? Right. I would absolutely love. Like, they have done some novels from Necron perspectives. Like, there's the Infinite and the Divine, which I've had recommended to, which looks like a really fun read. But, like, I would love if there was a story that was basically just like an archaeological dig gone wrong. It happens in the lore all the time. Like literally a video game I played a couple years ago, Mechanicum, really recommend it. Necrons versus the Mechanicum in like an XCOM style game is basically so the Mechanicum are like the machine cult for humanity. They help make mankind's machinery and keep it working, and because it's that far in the future, everyone's sort of forgotten how stuff has worked. So it's sort of turned from a bunch of scientists into a big church. But as you can imagine, when that is a faction within humanity, and these are an alien race of just a bunch of alien robots, there's both that sort of like temptation of, ooh, secret alien tech, and oh god, alien tech, this is unholy. That was basically like the conflict in that video game. Like you even end up having to fight something called heretics, which is a gloriously cheesy name of members of the Mechanicum that have started integrating Necron technology into their bodies as like cyborgy stuff. So that's full on Borg. Like, and honestly, yeah, like I say, that game fully recommend, really good. If you like anything like XCOM, it's like a simpler version of XCOM in terms of like you're only controlling you're still just controlling a handful of dudes, but like there's a little less evil in the RNG, shall we say, and there's not much in the way of permadeath. So it's easier in some ways, but you're also timed. Like the longer you take to do a mission, or the more you do on the mission, the more time it eats up, and when the time hits 0, final boss wakes up, you better be ready. If not, too bad. Really fun game. Easily replayable, because you will never unlock all the units in a single playthrough. I still need to unlock the big Mechanicum robot dudes, rather than just like the normal infantry and some other things. Like, you can beat the game with that, it's just the big robot dudes are cool. I'm liking this contrast between the dark metal and the light metal. It is actually helping separate things out. Glad I thought of that. Totally didn't steal this idea off of the millions of painting tutorials I watched just to feed my brain. Who knows? Kill team is still a thing. Or I could just do like a combat patrol of Necrons. Do like a little themed force. Just as something a bit fun to play. Don't have to go whole hog with an army. Where it's like, oh, I need like 3,000 points or I'm not going to be satisfied. No, I'll just buy cool shit. Put it on my shelf. And if it makes an army, all the better, really. Speaking of, oh, do the Mechanicus get along with Necrons, like the half Gene Stealers to Nids? Oh, no. No. The reason Gene Stealer cults get along with Tyranids is because they are basically the same species. For all intents and purposes, they got the same goals. The Mechanicum, like I say, it's a split between like, oh god, unholy alien technology. This isn't the will of our machine god. And some being very tempted by like, ooh, but who knows what dark secrets the alien technology has? We could totally use that. As you could expect from most forces associated with the Imperium, they're kind of puritanical most of the time. That plus the Necrons are just like, they're the old man coming out onto out of his front door to tell every other species in the galaxy to get off of their lawn. Like, they are the oldest still active species in the galaxy. So everyone else is like just barely registers as even sentient to them. Like, these guys have some absolutely bonkers technology. If they could actually like get their heads out of their not arses and well, I suppose their coccyxes and learn to play along, it would not take them very long to take everything over. But they just, despite the fact that they transferred their souls into mechanical bodies, they still have internal politics, and we all know how well that goes. There's a lot of arguing, a lot of civil wars, a lot of "I'm richer than you, you listen to me, no, shut up." So, to answer your question, it's one-sided at best, and even the Necrons don't get along with the Necrons a lot of the time. It's like an unrequited love, except instead of love, it's give me your Tesla coils. I want to shoot the green energy out of my bum bum. That was the weirdest thing I've probably ever said on stream. Certainly not the weirdest thing I've said, full stop, but said on stream is a whole different matter. Then again, yeah. Well, I was about to say it, like I was going to say about the new orcs that got shown off during last week's previews, the Beast Snaggers, which is a very awkward name to say. Just a lot of harsh consonants, but it's orcs. Hand is giving up on me at the moment. Those guys, when I'm already tempted by Speed Freak orcs, the fact that you also give me orc cavalry as an option, it's extremely tempted to run that as a mixed force. It's like have the vehicles for running people over, and the beast snaggers are actually, they look like the more catered towards big game hunting. So like they even make a reference themselves. Like an orc character says that the beast snaggers are out there to just get out there and kill the biggest things, whatever they are, to the point where their hunting javelins have freaking rockets on the end so that they explode when they hit something, which is pretty damn orky. It's like the old tank buster rocket hammer that I think you can still field nowadays. But it's just the concept of that is like, okay, we need this javelin to take out a giant robot. Stick a rocket on it. That's all we need to do. Just let it go after that. Is just brilliant. That just like the fact that they're riding big squigs. Like I love, like any person with a pulse that knows what squigs are. I absolutely adore squigs. Just angry red mouths, just constantly hungry. And then you make them really big, and you just slap a saddle on it and stick an orc on there. You've already sold me. It's like, yes, this is something that probably has already existed and should continue to. So I am very tempted by those when their army box probably comes out towards Christmas, I want to guess. That might actually be the thing that gets me picking up orcs again. Because orcs are my second army. Like, I started off completely aliens, where, I had my Necrons first, and then the next year I pick up orcs because they were just funny. But also bomb, yeah. So for the longest time, I played purely aliens until I just found marine chapters that I liked and just started collecting marines. And then the marines, because they keep catering to marine players, just ended up taking over because I kept getting new toys all the time, and it was like, ooh, but this, ooh, but this. And so that's marketing strategy that works. Be careful with which toys you pick. You might be tempted to buy more toys afterwards. Man, I'm using up the silver quick. Granted, thinning a metallic does feel weird. Let's check how it's looking on this. Yeah, no, that's working perfectly fine. I don't know why like I said, saying it out loud, pulling metallics on a wet palette shouldn't be an issue because the metallic flakes are probably bigger than any of the other pigments you're putting on. But then you actually put it into action, it's like, oh yeah, no, you're completely right. So there's a bunch of factions that have been tempted to return to or even to play. I still like the look of Harlequins. Just murder space elf clowns. It's like, okay, sure, give me. Apparently they're really strong right now. I don't know why. Certainly not why I'm picking them. I just see an excuse to paint a really colourful army. So I might collect a small number of Harlequins just for the sake of having them. Because that's consumerism at work, ain't it? It's all about just making things that you want just to own, not for any other particular reason, despite the fact that there's an entire game attached to these toys. Sometimes you just want the cool toys. How often do you replace your paints? Not as often as you would think. Like, say, Avalon Sunset, probably the paint I use the most, which is like the yellow, I use to base all of my Lamenters, which are like my biggest army. Over the past couple, I'm going to say the past 3 years, I go through about a pot of that paint a year. Which, for a 12 milliliter pot, isn't a huge amount. I think that's why a lot of Games Workshop paints, when you buy them and use them straight from the pot, they're so thick. Because you are meant to thin them down. Like, it's even part of their painting advisor, too thin coats, don't just slop that stuff on. So when you thin your paints, obviously you're diluting it, so you're getting more out of each drop of paint. You're getting more surface area coverage per milliliter, is how I'm going to say it. But it can also depend on how you paint as well. Like, back when I started, I was really bad for using gut paints. Like, the Necron I showed earlier, how it was red, but with a black wash over it. My old way was, okay, paint the whole thing red. Then cover the entire... Want to be cut? Oh, is this a bot? How do I get rid of you? Bye-bye. But yeah, the way I used to paint, so I'd paint the entire Necron red. The entire model red. Like this guy was. Okay, I don't know why there was a bit of a blip there, but there was a bit of a blip there. But we seem to be okay now. And then I would cover the entire thing. You can still see a little bit of it here and there where it's a bit patchy. The entire thing, not in a wash, but a thin down black paint, which worked for what I wanted it to do. But the fact that I covered the entire model in that wash meant I also had to go over every bit I wanted to be the original red colour with the red again. Basically using up, like, not twice as much paint, but like an extra 75% worth of paint that I really needed to. Yeah, spammers. So when I kicked that habit of like, okay, just put the wash where you want it to go. Don't just blindly put it all over the place just because it's less to think about. Suddenly, sure, it took a little bit more work, but not only was it quicker, because I wasn't painting a model twice just to get it shaded, I was using up a lot less paint. So that's something to learn. So, just really, unless you really need something painted and shaded really quickly and you don't care about it looking amazing, just put paint where you need it to go. Is the only thing I can say to that. And that since learning that several years ago, it has just made it a bit more efficient for me to paint. Of course, I still do have to replace colours. Like the fact that I had to wait in order to replace some colours because Games Workshop had moved a lot of their paint manufacturing over to producing, pardon me, hand sanitizer. It meant that I was stranded for a few months without being able to replace a colour that I really needed. But that was just a side effect of the current situation. I'm going to say it like that just so I don't have to say it out loud and make myself depressed. Yeah, that's the thing with this and honestly any sort of medium. There's always stuff to learn. Like, I thought I was being a genius. I was like, this takes less mental effort, so clearly it's better. It's like, no, I'm using my paints twice as fast as I really should. and it saved me a lot of money. Granted, the paints have gotten slightly more expensive over the years. A combination of like price rises, and certain paints have been started putting in bigger pots. Like the washes, like this, used to be in 12 milliliters. Now they're in like 24. So you are paying more, but you are getting twice as much paint. It also means that on the unfortunate case of you spilling a pot, knocking it over, what have you, you are losing twice as much paint. But just got to be careful. I know some people will transfer their paint into dropper bottles or nuclear winter. I don't remember saying that. Did I say nuclear winter for some reason? But yeah, it's just like, I don't know. Paint. The using up paint. Yeah. Honestly, it's something to not worry about, I would say, for anyone who wants to get into painting. Because, like, if you're using paint, you're using your paint. As long as you're not using it for something that you're just then going to cover up with something else, like for the majority, then just do what feels natural. If a paint feels too thick, like it's making your brush feel sticky, then it's leaving a texture on your model, fit it down. It'll make the paint last longer and you'll get a better result. If the paint just really isn't doing all that much in terms of like changing the colour of what you're putting it on, yeah, it's probably too much water. You could probably certainly get away with not thinning it as much. You said the situation. Oh, that's what. Okay, you know what I'm on about. 2020 is still behind us now, but its effects are lingering. Honestly, it could have been a nuclear winter for all we've had to do to sort it out and all the cracks that it's shown in the current setup, shall we say, without getting too political on stream. Anyone other than you guys is here to watch me paint toys, not hear me rattle on about stuff. Right. Is there anywhere else I want to do with this dark metallic before I start touching up some of the lighter silver? I think well, I'm getting a little bit underneath that elbow. Tell you what, that is clearly meant to be a broken panel, so that can get a little bit of the underframe silvered. This guy does have some pre-sculpted weathering on him, so that's going to be fun to work with when the time comes. But I think that is all of our Iron Warriors done. Yeah. Let me just rinse this off and take a sip. Oh god, that situation. Look, I ain't gonna say how to fix that because I don't know. All I can tell you is kind of our fault. If anyone's familiar with Lawrence of Arabia, you might know what I'm on about. Certainly, not like any of the West to, deny and suffocate other parts of the world so they could redistribute wealth to themselves. And then when the desperate countries have nothing left, they just start fighting each other. No, that's totally not something we would do. Not at all. Not at all. Totally not something we've done several times over. I blame the Romans. I kid, but it's depressing. Right, topping up some of the silver. Because it's I'm more watered down than I'm used to my silvers being. Just needed to cover a little bit of patchy areas. But that is looking fine now. Yeah. Honestly, it doesn't need to be a perfect base, because we are going to be covering up a fair bit of this with washes and shading. Like, I'm going to be experimenting a little with how I do metallics on this guy, which should be fun. But, next up, let's get some of the golds on this guy, which, let us refer back to our reference from Night Shroud. So, the collarbone cartouches, the skull, Oh, I accidentally knocked over to a different scene. That's what that was. Yeah, the collarbone cartouches, the skull, and the little inside bits of the shoulder pads are gold, as well as some of the details on his weapon. Might skip out on that. He's also also the he's got sort of a frill coming off of his arm. Barmy, that's also gold. I'm probably going to do that with the can't really call it a loincloth, but whatever this thing hanging off of his crotch would be called. Pardon me. Those I'll do gold. So probably going to start off with Retributor, as always with my gold. Also a nice side of painting metallic models, we are currently 40 minutes in. If I start at 7:30, yeah, 40 minutes in. We have got a large proportion of this guy's surface area based in comparison with the Orc, where that took like a stream and a half to really do. Just Orcs in general is a bit more. Well, it's not that Orcs are more complicated, it's that Necrons are less complicated. It gives me Mr. Freeze vibes. I mean, if you want cold and you don't mind being a furry, Space Wolves are good for that, but they're like my least favourite faction, so you know, say of that what you will. I like my ancient Egyptian alien robot skeletons, but Viking Space Marines with an obsession with walls, apparently that's too far for me. Then again, I don't know. I think it's more the representation of that culture rather than anything to do specifically with the mix of absurdities. It's like, you know, there was more to Viking culture than pillaging and war and drinking grog, right? You can do other things other than that. No, okay, I suppose that's their entire personality now because you named a character Sven. That plus, I don't know. There seems to be a particular breed of Space Wolf player that's how do I describe this? Are very in on asserting their masculinity, shall we say. It's like, yes, we get it. You play the hairy, stinky men in power armor. You want everyone to know that you're a guy. We can tell. You've copied their hygiene habits perfectly. Now get out of the store. I need to breathe. I don't know. I'm making jokes. Obviously, there's plenty of Space Wolf players that are perfectly functioning human beings that, you know, add to the community. And then there's the others that are like, please go on websites other than 4chan and Reddit. Please, for the love of fucking God. I could say that about a good chunk of the community, to be fair. Right, well, yeah, that gold is covered up quite quickly. I know this has been out of focus a fair bit, but honestly, I don't know. I am looking. Tips their fedoras, lol. Yeah. God. Oh, no. You just reminded me of how I used to dress in college. No. Ugh. Potential bad ending where I could have ended up quite easily as one of those types of guys. And then I developed self awareness. And the rest of the world dodged a bullet. Great, I've already managed to get some of the gold on some of the silver bits, but oh well. But yeah, apologies about a good chunk of this being a little out of focus. I think this current lighting setup and the fact that this is going to be a very metallic model is messing with that a little bit. I'm dropping frames again, but we're holding firm. But yeah, I am actually looking at upgrading the camera at some point. I am currently looking at a Logitech webcam. It's apparently very good for streaming, usually for face cams, but if it can do a face cam, it can do a small Warhammer model. Which, once I'm off furlough pay in a couple months, might be an option for me to use for a camera. So yeah, this thing is gold collar. These spires now, yeah, those are separate pieces, so don't mind getting them completely gold. Need a little bit more gold. Actually, put on just a tiny bit less than I actually ended up needing, which good guesstimating, I suppose. We'll get there. Granted, I said this is going to be a very metallic model. After this coat, that's all three of our main metallic colours on. It's going to be a fair bit of teal and a little bit of black. Granted, I have seen for Nihilak, the dynasty that I'm basing this colour scheme on, these shoulder pads are going to be gold, are going to be teal, but I might do a stripe of gold going down just to break it up. Yeah, I heard Logitech is decent. Yeah, it's the C922, I believe I'm currently looking at. It is about 100 quid, but it's a fairly decent camera. And honestly, I've not had a review when I've been looking it up that's been like, oh no, don't use this. It's like, oh, it's got some features that are kind of like you don't really need them, because it's apparently got some software in its drivers where it can attempt to chroma key without actually chroma keying. Like it just guesses what's the background and what isn't, and tries to cut that out. It's like, yeah, that's a feature you don't really need to bother with. If you need chroma keying, chances are you're already using a piece of software that can chroma key for you, like XSplit or something like that. You just get yourself a big green rug and hang that behind you and you're set. So yeah, depending on how things go, if I can keep up with this, by the time I get my actual working pay rather than furlough please don't die on us pay, may very well get myself one of them. You're going to get any free animated overlays, mostly for when your cam plays up. The thing is, I've sorted out my cam playing up, because it used to be that my camera would transmit the feed over Wi-Fi, but now I've got it set up where I've actually got my camera plugged into my laptop, so it's going through the wire rather than being transmitted. So that shouldn't be an issue, but overlays are still something I might consider. The logo in the example model so far is probably about as much as I would want in terms of real estate of the image being taken up, but I could always do something different. Like, especially if I do end up getting a following, and this is going to sound like really big-headed, but if I do ever get, like, say, donations during a stream, I'll probably want something that pops up to say, hey, such and such donated. But again, that is way off in the future, and very much up to chance of that ever happening, really, if you ask me. So, not going to think about it, because I can't really expect it to happen. That's been my approach to streaming. It's like, screw it, we're just going to do it because it looks fun. And if we end up needing something like that, we'll go get it. Don't think about it too much now, because if you spend all your time thinking about it, that's all you're ever going to do. Just sit there and think about it. And you just want to get started on this. So there isn't actually too much of this dark silver to tidy, though. I do notice I missed a couple of bits on the vertebrae. Let's make sure we get solid coat on this cable going up into our gun. This gun has a name, by the way. I just can't be asked to look up what it is. Like, I've literally got, like, the little book that came with the Indomitus box set that describes all the units inside. And I read the lore bits, and not any of the gameplay bits, because one, granted, as much as I do like my Necrons, and as much as it is good to know what you could be playing against, it's whatever. Can't convince me to read something when I don't even know if I'm going to be going up against it. And two, I'd read a load of the Marine stuff. That's what I spent my time on. And it's even with the Marine stuff, I was like, I don't really need to read the rules of this. We already know we've got the Codex coming up, so in a couple of months this is all going to be out of date anyway. Which, granted, it was nice to get the rules for free in the box, but, you know, they were only going to ever be temporary rules in that box. And we've had a Marine update. Could do a slide. Oh, AK-47. Sure, this could be a glowing alien AK-47. It probably serves the same purpose. Could do a slideshow of the models in the corner of a box, like in a box like in the Pokemon stream, potentially like a little portfolio up in the corner. It's something to think about. I don't want anything too distracting. Like it makes sense of like a Pokemon stream because in a normal like instance of that game, there isn't a huge amount happening unless like all the moves have been selected. Like they're not very active games, so it doesn't matter if someone gets distracted for a couple seconds. But with this, I'd certainly like to think that there's a good portion of time where paint is being put on models. So I would want to make sure that if that's what people are here to see, that's what they end up seeing. It's going to darken up some of the bits on the underside of this claw because it looks like a gauntlet being put over a hand. There we go. I believe that's all our metallics. Not too bad, not too bad. Do I go with teal or do I start doing some of the darks next? Tell you what, let's get the gun dark because that's going to be really quick and easy to do. It's going to go straight for a black. If I ever do some video game streams, I do have something that can function as a capture card setup. I might do an overlay just as something a bit more interesting. Don't know what games I would really stream all that often, but if there's something I just felt like playing on stream, like it's something like, hey, I want to show off this game. Let me talk about it for a bit. Then that might be something to do. There's options. There's always options. Honestly, with the approach I'm trying to bring to my streaming, it's probably going to be a case of what do I feel like doing, and I'll just do that. I'm getting some of this on areas I would rather not. Yeah, it's just something that comes with this. I do want this a little thinner. So yeah, I'm just going to play it by ear. What I end up doing. Like even when it comes to like the whole Avatar idea me and you be working on, I've enjoyed thinking about and planning out that character design. Am I gonna do it? I don't know. If I feel like it. It depends if I could be bothered to go through the rigmarole of making the model, rigging and setting something like that up, or even the financial option of like, hey, you can just pay someone else to do that. Yeah, how much though? Can I be bothered? If so, I will. If not, I won't. Gonna be that simple. At least whilst I'm not making a single dime off of this, I'm just gonna do it how the hell I want. It's like someone who doesn't care about their videos being monetized on YouTube being able to say fuck within the first minute. So, do I care about being demonetized? No. Fuck, fuck, fuck. I mean, hell, I could even potentially be critical of the platform whilst using the platform under this sort of circumstance. Wouldn't that be neat? Actually being able to voice an opinion. Sorry, that came out very sarcastic, but it was genuine. Just get some bits of the gun that I've missed on the side here. Yeah. That'll do, that'll do. Still a little bit on the edge here. There we go. And like I say, who knows what things are going to look like for this. Because I think I mentioned it on my tweet as well, announcing this. Sort of like, the next couple of weeks gonna be a little intense for me, Sassy. Yeah. Potentially gonna be a bit intense because I'm returning to work next week. Potentially Monday, or at least at some point during that week. If not Monday, certainly Tuesday. I'm gonna try and learn to rig it up. Might as well try instead of resorting to payment. It read as Maya as in the 3D software. Yeah. No, if you want to give it a shot, you go for it, man. But yeah, with work starting up for me next week, and then the week after. Not giving away too many details because it's a family thing, but I am going to be house sitting for the last week of the month, alongside also still being used to being back at work. I might have to skip at least 1 week just to like give myself the energy to reacclimate. Okay, well, let's do the inside of the cartouche black as well. That is also going to depend very much on what those weeks are like. Because I was actually talking to my general manager earlier today, and he was like, "Yeah, we've no idea how busy we're going to be once we open back up. So we could be absolutely rammed, we could be absolutely dead. Uh, Nobody knows." There's a neat trick. Cover it all in wet paint, wipe it off with your thumb, and suddenly you don't need to be anywhere near as accurate with your paint. So the opposite of a dry brush. Right, so currently my lower abdomen is crying out that I might need to use the bathroom. So I am just gonna go do that quickly. Just gonna switch over to our BRB, and I shall just be a moment. See you in a mo. The joys of reheated pizza. There we go. I reckon people won't know you're open, to be fair. It might be because of like the break in me paying attention. What was that in reference to again, Pixel? Won't know what you're open, to be fair. Oh, people won't know you're open as in as in work, as in work. I presume people would figure it out. I think once we get through this next thing of oh, hold on, just getting comfy again. This next stage, on the 17th, I think pretty much everything's going to be open then. There we go. Yeah, I don't know. If I'm perfectly honest, I don't want it to be busy. Obviously, at least in terms of like, I want to, get used to working again before I have my will to live siphoned off by the half term that's happening at the start of next month. So, give me some chance to acclimate. Where do I want to go? Yeah, let's get some teal on. I'm going to start. My teal is going to start off a bit dark. I want this, I think, to be my mid-tone? I reckon it'll be round, to be honest. Yeah, I'm kind of dreading that idea. Like I can see it going either way, but I can certainly see it. Hold on, just make sure the microphone's somewhere good. But yeah, I can certainly see it being quite busy. Oh well. Who knows? The stress might motivate me to find something a bit more suiting my skills. I'm sure I've said this before in private conversations with you guys. Like, yeah, perfectly ready to find something a bit more me than just typical service industry malarkey. There's a lot more I could do that's useful and fulfilling and not soul crushing, and I managed to get some of the black on this leg, and that actually covered it really quickly. Jesus Christ. Alright, I'll do that. But it's fine to get, especially in the current climate, especially in this current economy. And honestly, I always struggle to get interviews, let alone do well at them. So, who the fuck knows? I might be trapped, for all I know. Right, anyway, back onto this. Let's get this gauntlet arm. Teely. I'm going to try and avoid this nodule in the middle because that is going to end up being like a glowing green orb. It's like, do I really want to? I don't know. I'm thinking about the job stuff still. It's like, sure, I could find. There's certainly some things that people recommend that, oh, you could do this or this. It's like, I don't want to do those, but like, can I afford to be picky? I don't know. You'd think multiple years of work experience and a degree and just a decent enough attitude and you'd be able to get something, but nah. Apparently not. That's why I ended up helping out at my local gaming store for so long, because just sort of like, I absolutely sucked even getting interviews, let alone doing well at interviews. So it's like, okay, you know what, I'm going to get some work experience, help out here for a while and try again. And that turned out longer than I thought it would be. So I just sort of said, alright, screw it, I'm just going to do this until I don't feel like it. And then I started getting work. Shit sucks. That's all I can say. Shit sucks. So yeah, that's the gauntlet with the base coat for teal. That's going to be our darkest, I think, on this. We can work up to... So this is... Sorry, I should probably say it's Thousand Suns Blue is the teal that I'm currently applying to the model. It is going to need a second coat because it is looking a little uneven in places, especially around edges and brush strokes. But that just means it's just going to take a little bit longer. The second coat never takes anywhere near as long as the first. And these big old shoulder pads, having these teal right next to the gold of the inner ones is going to look quite nice, I think. Give us that little bit of a pop, and there is something about this colour, like, choice that does give that sort of like a little bit of that ancient Egyptian vibe that the Necrons have always sort of carried with them. I'm not sure why. I don't know if it's something to do with like Tutankhamun's death mask or something else, but it's like it does just give that vibe, which I think is pretty cool for this color scheme. Now, when I painted Necrons, I painted them gold and black because, well, I've had that red one. Now my Necrons were all originally that red and silver color scheme, and I decided, nah, this looks too boring. The concept was just red Necrons, which is just kind of plain. So I repainted a lot of the army gold and black, which looked nice. I'm sure there's old photos of it still up on the internet, especially on my old DeviantArt page, because that's where I used to upload stuff. That's where I actually came up with this username. But yeah, I don't know what colour scheme I would go if I started up Necrons again, if I would keep to that or try and come up with something else again. But I'll burn that bridge if I ever get to it. Who knows? Who knows? I don't. That's why I'm talking in hypotheticals. Anyway, let's try and cheer myself up because that last conversation topic was depressing. Automod held a message for reason. Redneck Necrons. Yeah, okay, Automod, I will allow that just for now. It didn't like the term redneck, John. I'm just gonna let you know that. It's a very American thing. I do not know enough to say otherwise. Hold up, you just had an idea. Oh god, how bad could this be? Is this like he's figuring out how to say it, or is he opening up Photoshop kind of idea? Because either of those could end up disastrous. This paint is actually thinning out quite translucently, so hopefully we can get it good coverage in just a couple coats. Let's find a more comfortable position for this leg, sorry. There we go. And then let's just get it on the rib cage too. Let's try our best not to get it on any of the other parts. Twitch fancies. I think it's just all like, as far as I understand, the term redneck in America is a bit divisive because people typically use it in reference to like, that sort of hillbilly Cletus from The Simpsons vibe, but it could also has been used to sort of like demonize working class, etc. So I can see why Twitch would be a bit like, do you want to let that be used? It's like how some people use the term pleb over here. It's yeah, it's got a political charge to it that might make it a bit right. That just sounds like something else entirely. Still rude, but like something else entirely. I don't know. Alright, that covered it a bit better than I thought it would. At least on the rib cage, but I suppose it still needs another coat. But at least the first coat covered more, and I've managed to get a little bit of it on the gold on the inner bit there. Make sure the underside over here is covered. Just get a quick extra pass on this shoulder pad and that should get that. I am trying to avoid these orbs because I want those, I think I said, to be sort of like a lighter green. I am actually going to experiment with those. See if I can make them actually look a bit glowy without having to do a load of funky effects. So that the old Tesseract glow paint that could have been useful for that. First time experimenting with that on something other than just like, hey, what does it look like on this? Or what does it look like on this? There we go. Let's go on that side with decent coverage. Let's just get a little bit more of that. And this is about an hour and a quarter in, and we have got a majority of the base coat done. It is mostly going to be the greens after this. So that's going to be interesting to try, because I do want to do something funky on his big phase sword, and then there's the Ankh and his eyes, and these orbs that are going to be green. And I've managed to get some of the teal on the black, which isn't the end of the world actually. Black is like the easiest colour to repair. And let's actually get these bottom bits I actually missed, because they are black from when I did my Zenithal. And get that with a solid base coat. And then the underside, there is actually some nice detail hiding under there, like some panel lines and a circly thing. Did I do it on this side? I did not. That is actually very thin on that. I might just grab some of the paint neat and colour that in. Yeah, plans for future Warhammer armies are like, because like I've got pretty much most of what I want for the Marines, and there hasn't been any Marine rumours for a while, so we're not expecting anything new in terms of like large new units being added. Maybe the occasional character, maybe a vehicle here and there, but nothing too major. So it's like I think I can cool it on them. I've gotten them in a good place, and then my Tau I've literally done, because that is my army for that force is literally just 8 models. I've got them. I just need to actually finish painting them. Mechanicus, I do have some of as an army that I might want to flesh out once the new codex hits, I believe next month. Was going to hit this month, but there've been some delays. But hey, that just means it get delayed to a month where I have more money. So works for me. Ooh, there's a back of the ribcage I forgot too. So I'll see how that goes. If not, I might just sell off the Mechanicus stuff because it is just sort of eating up space. Necrons are a possibility as a nostalgia. Same for Orcs. We need to have a proper Warhammer game soon. Yeah. I mean, come June, that's definitely going to be an actual option. Not sure how things are right now in terms of indoors, but it's honestly just confusing. But yeah, I need to. I've got a bunch of people that popped up during like these lockdowns saying like, "Hey Dan, we could. You want to play a game sometime?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." And they would ask that in the middle of June last year, and it's been a case of where we've not been able to because everything. But yeah, I'm looking to actually be able to play this edition. I didn't play much during 8th just because I was busy and I didn't have the funds. I was still painting, but I wasn't like building an army, if you get me. Not until towards the tail end. But now I'm going to have not more time, but more freedom over how I use my time. So I'm certainly going to be dedicating some of that to actually playing this. Even if it means just like hopping down to the local brick and mortar Games Workshop store on their Friday game nights, meeting up, trying to get to pick up games and see if I can't get to know some people there. Or like how Pixels has said, playing games with him. Because he's got some Tyranids and some Chaos that we can unearth, fix up, and get ready for games. Especially considering I have the GW app, meaning I have access to the rules for both of those armies because they've not been updated to 9th edition yet. Pardon me. Fixie. Mostly the gold there. This pipe here wants at least mostly based silver. Let's do like that. Let's get some of that edge a little brighter. And on some of these broken up bits, I am just gonna get a little teeny beeny bit of silver on there just to make it look like a broken panel. There's a bit of the inside there that I've missed. We shall get to that in a moment. I do like a lot of the weathering on this guy. It really does give him that ancient feel. And there's that. Well, that paint's still a little wet. Just try not to mix it up too much. Downside with this teal, it is taking a while to dry. I don't know if that's the amount of hydration it's had or just something about it is just retaining some water. A little low energy today, I won't lie. Don't know entirely why. No, I've got some ideas, but I don't know. It's sort of been crystallized going back to work, and I'm still sort of processing that in a few ways, as we saw earlier. Probably shouldn't let it affect me this much, but I'm still a little like. Partially, I don't want to go back to work, and also like, there's a lot of unknowns, and I don't like unknowns. But I will probably be fine after the first couple of days. That's how it always seems to go for me. Right, there we go. I think I got that teal covered fairly well. So, that is the majority of our base coats. Not about. Well, I'm still probably going to do the teal stripe on his forehead. Debating on how to go about that. And then there's the greens as well, but that is actually looking fairly okay for now. Still have about another 40 minutes, I would say, for the stream. So let's see if I can't get. Ooh, in fact, I need to fix that gold so I got some teal on. Let me just remember to do that. But yeah, hopefully, under this new world order that seems to be forming, I will have a bit more free time for myself. I mean, I could actually play a bit more with a large variety of people. So that should be quite nice actually. Now that I say it out loud. But yes, tell you what. See if we can't get the teal on his forehead done now. Hopefully you'll have more people on for the first week. Yeah, I think with my manager saying that we're not sure how busy we're going to be, they're just going to presume the worst. So, like, there's a lot I could say about my workplace, but I can't really say anything bad about the vast majority of the people that worked there. Like, there was one person I had an issue with, but they've now left. So, hunky dory for me. Tell you what, let's get this entire forehead teal, and it'll be easier to inch in with the gold on the sides to shape it, rather than trying to get it perfect first time with the teal. Though that itself doesn't look too bad. Yeah. Yeah. Thinner brush that's a little less messy. Will you do? Tip's a bit curled, but that's what I get for using purely synthetic brushes. So, let's get the actual temples gold again, and then if I basically try to edge highlight that should be a thick enough line to add that little bit of extra definition. Behold, the first bit of freehanding done on stream, and it is a straight line. Purely we are autistic prophets here. But that will actually give me an edge to help define the shape of the head a bit more, rather than just having the entire forehead teal. So that will actually give me an opportunity to highlight that edge with the normal gold colours. There we go. We'll need to redefine that shape a little more, because it did come out a bit messy. Again, I'm thinking I'm just going to switch to neat, just for the coverage. Doesn't need to be perfect if my brush is a little damp. That's going to be my thinning agent. And then I can make the line a bit stronger when we highlight it. Again, I cover a bit too much there. Let's change angle. And neaten that up. There we go. That's looking alright for now. Still have the gold edges. Could use a teeny bit more of gold because that's come out a little blue where it's been a bit thinner. Sorry, there's a lot of back and forth when it comes to something even simple like this. I think it's just a case of me having some of my paints a little too thin for it to be immediately impactful. And then just a little bit of the back there. There. Think that'll do for now. That looks like a stripe rather than just painting his entire forehead gold, blue even. It is a teal colour, it's just the white balance on this does make it look a bit like a blue. Again, hopefully something I can fix come time for the webcam upgrade. Which I did find out, the webcam does have a tripod mount on it. So, I can still use my tripod with it, which is something I'm very much looking forward to. So, the green. So as we can see, down here with this guy, there are the tubes of his weapon, of his gun, that are green, the sword blade, some of these cables, it doesn't show up amazingly, but his eyes, the Ankh itself on his sternum, and the orbs that are dotted around his body. Got a couple on his thighs, on his shoulder pads, on his gauntlets. I think anywhere that would look like it would need that little bit of extra power has these orbs. Now I do like that green to really dark transition. So what I'm hoping to do is start off light and then darken it in a gradient. So what colour do I want to start off? We already have it fairly light from the Zenithal. It is more grey than white, but it's still something. Also, his eyes are probably going to be green as well, but that'll be a bit easier. Hmm. So let us start with a really bright saturated green without going into sort of the minty territory or the pale territory with some moot green, which is just a real sickly green colour. And hopefully can get this on in a couple coats. So I'm going to glob a fair bit and put it on the palette. Let's see how we go with that. If it doesn't work, well, it'll be easier to put a dark colour over it. So let's start with our sword blade, which is this big flat rectangle. Just give me an idea. I apparently got to touch a little bit of it with a gun. So let's try. That is actually covering okay. Might need a couple coats in order to like make it the brightest green, but that is at least like covering fairly okay. Should be too difficult to lighten it in some areas, darken it in others. See if we can't make this look a little radioactive as well. It is going to look weird. It's already looking a bit weird. The color balance between like the nice contrast between the teals and the golds, the silver being a nice neutral color, and this is fucking bright green, right, slap bang next to everything else. But that's Necrons for you. Certain dynasties do have different coloured glowy stuff, but alien green has always been sort of like a Necron vibe to me. Now, I am seeing some areas that we could do silver to break this up where it's actually joined to the arm. So I might see how that looks. That's a bit too much paint on at once, so let's get some on the back. There we go, and that should be nice and dry by the time we get to there. That has actually done a whole coat on this side. I had too much on my brush. Jeez. Yeah. Let's pick that up off of there. Move it around this bracket, which does have some weathering on it as well, so that does tell me that this is like a solid metallic piece rather than just like a glowy energy thing. But yeah, this little coupling here and this little joint between here, I'm probably going to do silver. That way, we can still help make it look like a solid object rather than just some ethereal thing. I am going to get the green on it now, mostly because I don't care. If it gets on there, it gets on there. It's somewhere for me to put paint. There's the back end of the blade here too. Downside of it being a big cleaver thing rather than a sword, there's actual like edges and sides to it that need covering, not just the flats. Hey, that's geometry for you. There's here. And the top. And that is already fairly green. You can already start getting another layer on this front end. So it's looking to my estimate of this taking only a couple streams instead of the 3 that the orc did might be correct, which means I can hopefully get this guy done before I might need to take a week's break. Which means nothing gets interrupted, which is all fine and dandy by me. Because if there's anything I hate, it's having things interrupted. And the idea of like if I stop for a week in the middle of a project and then I have to come back to it at the end of that, the next week, I'm going to be more likely to just say start it and stop. So if I can get this guy done before break, I can start back up with something fresh, and I'm less likely to just give up just for the sake of just not laziness, but you know that sort of feeling where it's like I need to do this, I need to go do this, I should do this. And it's not that you don't, but you just can't. I don't know if that sounds weird. Like you just can't give yourself the motivation to go and do it. So you just never do, and you feel guilty about it because it's it's something you wanted to do or that you should have done. That's part of why I wanted to start this, to give me something to help one, give me more of a schedule to my own time, but also like not so much prove to myself, but like help kick that habit of like, look, there's something you've been able to do in your own time without any outside pressure for X amount of time. You can do this. You got it. Yeah, that sword is basically based. That went on actually fairly smoothly. Let's move on to some of our orbs. Like, say, the one on his gauntlet. I don't mind getting a little bit in the area around because of how translucent both of these paints are. It might help make a fade effect. In fact, how do I want to do? Lifted my leg, hit the tripod. Abort. Mission failed. That's an old reflex. Right, there we go. Yeah, there are some like etches in this. I don't. Nah, if I try and do those all glowy and weird, it'll make it harder to make that detail visible. Also, wow, that teal is showing a bit more patchy on camera. Oh well, let's carry on. I can always touch up when I do my cleanup, because no doubt there's going to be some cleanup for this. Yeah, I was before that huge tangent. Armies I was thinking of maybe picking up because I think I already said Mango Smasher. How are you doing? You're a new face, as far as I know. Oh, you got. Well, welcome. We are painting Big Boy Necron currently at the moment while talking about random things with a couple friends. Hope the evening's treating you well. Gotten most of our base coat done for the evening. So, come half past is probably when we'll finish for the evening, but should be picking up with this next week. Doing well, how am I today? Not too bad. Not too bad overall. Just been mentally prepping for returning to work after this pandemic. So it's just sort of like I've not been at work since like November. So it's been a very long time. And it's just like, oh god, how tough is this going to be to do? But that's the worst thing on my mind right now. So I'll absolutely take that. Other than that, it's painting my toys. Well, let's get an extra little bit on this sword blade because I'm seeing some patchiness coming through. The patchiness could work in our favour if I wanted certain areas where it's patchy to be dark, but I'd rather have this entirely flat in terms of colour and then adding the patchiness myself. So I want it to at least look like it's on purpose. And this brush is getting a little mangled. But we press on. There's this cable here. This green is actually standing out quite brightly alongside all the other flats. But something I have found while painting is that things can look a little garish and clashy when they're like just base coated like this, but a lot of the time when you've actually gotten things shaded and detailed, it sort of melds together a little bit better. There we go. There's a lot of fiddly bits, so I am just going to wash this brush a little bit to freshen it up and get a little bit more of our moot green. Just to make sure we have enough to work with. Would rather not have myself running out of paint in the middle of a part. There we go. There's a little bit of this cable here too. Sort of it twined itself together. There we go. And just get that green. So yeah, hopefully, despite how bright this green looks compared to the bright teal and the gold and the silver, once things are shaded and there's a bit of texture to help distract from it just being pure colours, should sort of meld together a little bit better. And just make sure. That's another thing with putting bright colours thinly over a metallic. It can dull them. It's because the metallic sheen fights a little bit with the normal paint. That's how you know you need to do a couple coats over a metallic. Very good if you want to do weathering. If you don't mind the orange or the teal that you use to do some corrosion looking a bit dulled, but we want this to actually be green. There we go. So I believe that's all the stuff I can see immediately on the back. Just lay on that pipe here. Yeah. Yeah, because that's a bit patchy there. So where to next? Probably the orb on our little belt here. It's actually gone on fairly well over the gold. And then again, green and warm colours tend to get on a little bit better than just a plain silver. Let's do that a little bit because it's looking patchy. Just make sure we got second coat over these. Just make sure it's a solid colour. Where next? Either the bits on the gun or the orbs here. Ooh, I actually missed a bit of the thigh there being silver, so get that with a thin base on. Didn't do it on this side at least. Just to mark it out. It's a bit easier to see now that it's green. And actually get some silver over some of the bits there that I've missed. Now if I were a professional, the fact that I'm bouncing between a typical paint and a metallic paint would probably set off some alarms, but I don't give enough of a poop. I don't mind if a little bit of the metallic flake gets in the normal colours, because it's never been something I've noticed before. It's I don't know, just as long as your brush is clean, it's not a huge deal. Right, so there's a pipe here in his abdomen that isn't ribbed, so it's telling me that it could be a green cable instead. Again, adds a little bit more colour to the front and middle of him. Man, this is looking a little potato cam today. I might need to use extra lights rather than just this one that I've been using today, just to help things look a bit brighter. Yes, the rods in the gun. Those are going to be green too. But hey, I'm not going to say it's still early days for my streaming, so still a fair bit to learn. And again, who knows, once I do get that Logitech, how things are going to look. And the green is actually really being used up fairly fast. Maybe I need to just get more on my palette. I am spreading it out thin on the palette, so it probably is absorbing a fair bit of water considering how much I'm using. There we go, and I can always tidy up with the silver after. Doesn't matter a huge amount. It's green. This is good, the back end of it. Yeah, don't matter if I'm messy right now. I kind of like being a little messy because it's less to care about. Tidying up is for later, next stream, maybe. By the looks of it. Like I've said before, by the time we're done here today, should have our base colours sorted. And that's right there, so just get a second coat just to brighten it up. A belt orb, which sounds like a Pokemon. Now that I say that out loud, is Belthorpe. And then got the front of this cable in his armpit. Not showing up too well on camera just because of the funny angle and the funny lighting, but I assure you that is getting some green on it. There we go. Oh, there's the cable coming out of his gun on the front end too. Just flip that upside down. Cleaning up is for nerds. Oh, I wish. Then again, one of I think I've mentioned before, because me and a couple of the people here in chat tonight do have each other in a group chat where we discuss arty things. And I think I've mentioned before an artist called John Blanche that I really like. He's a little divisive within Warhammer because some people don't like his style, but I really do like his style. sort of a messy, grungy, inky look. Uh, and that sort of did influence how I painted my Space Marines, let's put it that way. Nice browns and red inks over some not vibrant colours, but lighter colours. Has its own certain look. More green, because that's still a little patchy on those rods. Again, painting such a bright colour over a dark metallic. Gut rod. I felt the brush go over something. Ah, there we go. Got a little bit of the green on his fingernail there. For now, let's get some of the watery stuff and use a smaller brush actually for this, because I am going to try and see if I can get some of the green in his eye sockets, as well as on that onk on his sternum. Smaller brush. Which will it be? You'll do. So it isn't technically a smaller brush. I think it's the same make as the one I was just using, but it's a tidier brush because I have not put it through hell and back. I should probably start using this one straight up, and then yeah, just a little dot. Doesn't matter if I don't get like a perfect coverage in the eyes, because a lot of that is actually going to end up being a brighter green. And then let us get his onk. Probably am going to miss a little bit, but again, that's probably going to be a bit easier to clean up. Yeah. Having to hold my breath. Yeah, not perfect, but it's there. Let's see if I can't just, with this small brush, touch up some areas, because that's still looking a little patchy. Because I think it seems to be the later on I use a paint in certain areas, the patchier the actual colour ends up being. It seems to dilute over time on the palette, and I'm still getting used to that aspect of using one. Right, there we go. It's another touch in the eyes. Okay, all that's left for tonight, I think, is some tidying up. Which means we're going to grab some of our dark silver, which is still somehow on there. At least it feels like it. And get this bit in between the blades. As well as get this little module that's attaching the blade to his arm. Now, I need some of the neat paint. That has already thinned down quite a bit. Put it in the same patch on the paper. There we go. That's much better. That's actually looking solid. And then, yeah, retouch that up. Get it around every side of this little box. There we go. And get this little rod. Get that. Anywhere else with the dark? Oh, yeah, definitely. Managed to get a little bit of his pelvis green too. And tidy up these gut cables. Doesn't matter if the area around them is still a little green. Might actually help make it look a bit glowy. And some of the functional bits of the gun. That's what I presume they are, at least. You know, I said cleaning up would be next stream, and yet here I am doing it now. We got the time. Screw it. Then the normal silver, because I saw I got some of the green on his thighs too. It's a bit much. That thigh's fine, but yeah, this is the problem one. Thankfully, covers up fairly quickly. And just add a little bit to the working bits. Just add some something a bit different rather than just the dark metal. Make sure that finger isn't green from when I wiped it on earlier. Just get some of that in that little bit of damage there. Gold next. This is probably the least interesting part, but we're getting it done right at the end of our first stream for this guy. So you know what? I'll take it. I'll take it. This guy is painting up fast. Considering how much larger he is compared to other models, there's a lot less little fiddly things to deal with. Fewer colours too. Make sure the edge of this little Ankh cartouche is actually gold too. Ooh, I managed to get most of the gold on the side of the brush there rather than the tip. A little bit of blue still here and there on this. See, this is why for pixel stuff, I recommended doing a fairly simple scheme with just reds and blues, because the more colours you add, the more there is to touch up and clean up. And hopefully, his the idea I gave him, if he does end up going that way, will be minimal in terms of cleanup. In fact, any messiness might add to it. But we'll see. Okay, I think that's our gold cleaned up. Let's just put a little bit extra around here on the forehead, just to make sure that line is solid. There we go. Teal. I think there are. Whilst I was working on some bits of the teal that I did just straight up miss, mostly in really hidden areas. Just gonna quickly get that. Mostly way back here on the shoulder pad. Both sides. I probably will go for it. It's a nice idea. Yeah, like I say, if you think of something better yourself, absolutely go for that. But that was just my idea of like, hey, here's a way we could paint them up really quickly using a limited palette. Probably some dry brushing as well now that I think about it. Because like, there's some units that might want similar colours, but you want them to look a bit different. So dry brushing them with different colours over the top of that same sort of 2 spray can method might just help add a little bit of extra separation between the units. And then there's Be'lakor. He's a whole different animal, because he's not dedicated to a single god. He's just kind of like a pet project of theirs. So he's kind of just pure black. There we go. Just right in there. No in particular on the ribcage I'm seeing that needs the work. So that's a good sign. Yeah, there's a little bit of black to clean up. Because literally I just managed to get some of his gun green, which we do not want. And a little bit of spilling over some of the silver too. Ah. Managed to hit my microphone against the camera, which very professional. Yeah, this entire top edge here is untouched. There we go. Yeah, probably just going to paint him as he is meant to be. To be fair, that might make him easier, because like, even the Games Workshop like painted tutorial for him is mostly like, okay, so we sprayed him black, then we dry brushed a grey, then we dry brushed a lighter grey, and then we actually put the effort in. And it actually looked pretty decent considering. Like 90% of their work was meant making his sword look like an actual like magical weapon. But there is plenty of working room on a model like that to just do what you want. Go. Still missing a load of the green that I've got in other bits. It's just sort of like a bright colour. Just sort of hides in the noise. especially when you've not done the inside of certain random little bits and barrels. Right, I think that's that. And let's get inside of the Ankh and underneath these arms here, just to make it a bit more defined. That took like 2 seconds, and none of it was on camera. Still, that's like that. And I did manage to get some other paints on some of the green, so back to green to tidy up. It's a lot of back and forth. But this green is going to have a lot of colours over it, so just making sure that it's the same finish rather than being the right colour. Just don't want the green being silvery. Yeah, this is thinned down quite a bit, so it's literally just good for correcting the finish. But I think that right there is how we wanted him for tonight. Mostly the base colours. So if I grab him and get him in better focus. Phone, if you would cooperate, please. Also doesn't help that my light died. Man, okay. The warm light looked best there. Don't know when that happened, and maybe he ran out of power. But yeah, that is where he is looking at. I think that's where we're going to leave it for tonight. Hopefully next week should be able to get a good chunk of him done, if not completely done, because he is fairly simple in terms of paint layout. It is mostly going to be those orbs and the sword that are the most effort. But yeah, it's come out pretty slick. That colour scheme, this what's it called, Nihilek Dynasty, works pretty fabulously for them. So yeah, that is where I believe we're calling it for tonight. Thank you again for coming along and sitting with me whilst I talk and complain about various things. Yeah, this light is dying. I might need to start employing using this ring light alongside other lights for next stream. But yeah, thank you all for coming along despite those very small technical difficulties at the start. They just balanced out at the end. And I will catch you all next week.